So, for our first panel of the day, we are going to be discussing going beyond the guest room. This panel is sponsored by Exertis Elmo. When AV Twips think of the hospitality market, the first thing that comes to mind is often a guest room TV install, but there are so many more opportunities on properties these days, and we're going to dive into all of them. Let me introduce our speakers for the day. Let's start with you, Eric.
How's it going, everybody? Eric Steiner, Vice President of Sales for the Hospitality Division here at Exertis Almo.
Greg.
Thanks, Megan. Greg Kakorda, Director of Fixtures, Furnishings, and Equipment at Exertis Almo.
Corey.
Hi, all. Corey Allen. I'm the Vice President of Services here at Exertis Almo.
And last but not least, Patrick.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Patrick Cuddy with Legrand AV, Director of Distribution for Channel.
I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to dive into this topic. Let's start by talking about trends. What are some of the emerging tech trends that you see happening in the hospitality industry today? And anyone can feel free to start.
Not all at once.
I would say that outside the guest room, the biggest thing that we've seen is definitely an increase in digital signage, either via wayfinding, informational, especially moving away from traditional video walls that have been present maybe in lobbies or resorts, and definitely moving into your DV LED walls. There's a lot of manufacturers that offer all-in-one or complete customized solutions, and it's definitely a lot more of a wow factor on especially some of the higher end resorts and properties that we've worked with in the past to give a guest a really great experience right when they first walk into that property.
I'd also say, in addition to that, is not just the hardware itself, but if you look at some of the content that is being broadcast via some of those systems, seems to be much more, I don't want to say complex, not complex is a bad thing, but more useful and beneficial to the guests as opposed to just broadcasting a message. A lot of it is interactive. A lot of it is kind of call to action. So again, along with the hardware, seems to be profoundly different content, very targeted at that guest experience.
Right. And I would add to the back end of that for both that this is becoming a little bit of an opportunity for audiovisual to be immersed into the space. And so to make it so that the guest experience is truly just an experience, that they're not thinking about the connection or the devices that are there. It's just naturally occurring and moving in that direction as we go forward.
You guys brought up some great points, and we're actually talking about a lot of those later today. So everyone that's watching, be sure to stay tuned because we're going to hit all of those points in our sessions later today. Besides the guest room, what areas of a hotel can AV play a role in? I know you mentioned the lobby, so let's start with that. Like, what role does it play in the lobby, and what's kind of new there? And then we'll move on to other areas.
Yeah, I would say like what we talked about before is, and Patrick mentioned it too, is creating a immersive experience or a themed experience on wherever a property may be. It may be a certain geographic location, it may be tied to a theme park or in area that they want to immerse themselves with what's going on sort of outside the hotel. Samsung makes great video products, DV LED wall products that really high nit, low millimeter, from far away. You can view it up close. And it's right when the guest walks in, it's creating that experience for them that can tie into the theme of the hotel or the theme of the surrounding areas that the hotel may be incorporated with.
And that's so important to get them right off the bat and kind of set the tone for the rest of their stay.
Yeah, I think every one of us has probably walked into a hotel. I would say one of which is warm and inviting, architecturally is themed, is something that you not necessarily have a wow factor, but when you walk in, you feel comforted. And then we've also walked into hotels where the experience is like, oh boy, what did I get myself into? I think as far as like technological advancement, using some of the hardware technology, using some of the content platforms with some of those, I would say intriguing architectural and functional elements of a lobby is certainly conducive for keeping people interested in not only that particular property, but maybe other sister properties and so on. There's elements that exist in the lobby itself when someone steps in that I think are crucial and beneficial to that user experience overall.
You bring up a great point about keeping things cohesive between kind of sister properties. Do you have any kind of tips on how people can do that when they specifically relate it to the lobby?
Well, I actually was thinking about this yesterday. So I fancy myself to be a Marriott person, and I
Me
like
too.
the consistency of Marriotts, specifically courtyards. If you notice, if you go into a courtyard, really functionally from each one of the properties is pretty similar. They're pretty different as long as they've been upgraded. And one of the things that I always like about it is I walk in and I have the bar to the right. So if I want to get a drink, I can do that. And then there's always kind of a nice little step down cozy area with a few displays, fireplaces, and seating elements as well. I always like that. I like the consistency of that. I like knowing that, okay, if I'm going from one property to another, there's very little deviation. And that's the kind of sense of comfort that I've been accustomed to, and really kind of shows the experience of, okay, if you're someone who travels frequently, and we're talking about mid-tier hotels, right? Someone that travels frequently, you like that consistency. You like those elements of those particular properties. So I always kind of seek myself finding, those Marriott courtyards that are comforting from one to another, from city to city.
Yeah, and in addition to that, with AV and not only the furniture itself, but creating that guest experience, the appliances that can be offered through Exertus Almo really create that as well. So you walk into these mid-market properties where they have a pantry and select and grab and go items and whatnot. All of those refrigerated items, the commercial refrigeration, as far as that, the commercial microwaves to heat up that food, all of that can be purchased through us.
You're a one-stop shop.
I was going to add too that sometimes we don't always think about. I know Corey does, but sometimes we don't always think about the A in AV. And I think audio can also create a certain experience, right? If you're in a hotel in Nashville and you walk into a hotel and they're playing, country music or southern music, or you're walking to a different property, maybe in Miami Beach, and they're playing some cool jazz. I think audio could really set the tone or the vibe of the hotel that you walk into, even if it is a mid-scale franchise hotel versus a high-end independent. I think you could find the right audio systems within the lobby itself to create a cool environment depending on where you're located or what theme you want to go with.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the lobby experience is just the start, right? It takes us, it gives us the entry and that feel. A lot of things like to your point, Eric, Virgin Hotel in Nashville.
Wait, Patrick, I
Had the
think
opportunity
we're
to stay there
losing you a little
recently,
bit.
and they are that immersed feel. Oh, that's not good. I am sorry.
Okay, your audio's back. So if you want to
is
just
that
kind
better?
of start, yeah, that's much better. If you want to start your sentence over and go through that, it's live event.
Okay. Sure, it is. Wi-Fi and all. So what I was saying is, the immersive experience. I just, not that long ago, I had an opportunity to stay in the Virgin Hotel in Nashville, and it is 100% tech driven. Everything in your room is controlled by your mobile phone. The guest check-in is controlled by your mobile phone. So as we think about the AV, and that's, Eric saying country music, that's what triggered it in my head. I was like, oh yeah, it is all the way through, and it's natural. They've done such a great job of making it natural, and it is consistent between their different properties to talk about the cohesiveness, Megan. But what that means to me from a manufacturer standpoint is specification, right? That you're working together with a building owner or a brand owner or designer to say, in every experience, we want our guests to be comfortable. We want them to do this. And in order to do that, we need this item consistently supplied, working through a great distributor partner like Exertus Almo to make sure that inventory is at the right time for the right build, down the future.
So consistency is key. What are some other areas going around the property? What are some other areas that integrators can expand their business into?
I think naturally in a lot of markets, sorry, Greg, just
go ahead.
I think about just even as an organization that is constantly in and out of hotels, either meeting with customers, meeting with vendors, being a part of large events, there's a lot of space incorporated within a lot of properties that can be used by a choir of people, namely conference rooms. So one of the things that I think we've historically seen is I would say, a pretty subpar equipment or disjointed equipment deployed in those spaces. And I think it's a real opportunity for Pro AV integrators to show, here's a different element of AV as a part of the ecosystem within hospitality that can really drive further demand from a user, and have that experience bring more people to the property, right? And you can, of course, rent those spaces. Those are spaces of which you can allocate certain time windows to if someone wants to use it. So there is a huge monetary advantage, but you need to make sure that they're appropriately equipped for particular users. And I think it's a good space for a traditional Pro AV integrator to get into when we're talking about, properties as a whole.
Corey, how do you think that integrators can kind of make sure that those spaces are good for multi-purpose rooms, essentially? Because it's everything from during the day, there's full-blown conferences where people are sitting classroom style, and at night it can be turned into a ballroom and there's a really fun event with maybe projection mapping and all this other technology going on.
Yeah, I think it does have to be there. It does have to be a bit flexible and nimble. But I think a good area to start, especially in what you'd want in consistent experience, and Patrick already kind of alluded to this a little bit. When you talk about technology as a whole, and I think Eric may have kickstarted this, is the audio piece of it as well, right? I think that's one area of which I think hotels, Pro AV integrators, and conversations going through that needs analysis, I really think starting with the audio capability is pretty paramount. We understand that there is going to be certain needs and desires for each one of those spaces as far as what they're going to be used for at a particular point in time. But certainly, if you're interfacing with a good Pro AV integrator, they're going to give you a myriad of options to be suitable for each one of those scenarios when it comes to actual hardware. But I think really using audio as like a baseline for those spaces and understanding, okay, from certain levels, if you are in a combined divide area or space, which is very common in hotels, really advancing the system to be optimal from an audio perspective, and then being flexible and nimble in terms of what you would need to do from a video perspective.
Yeah, Corey, I couldn't agree with you more on that aspect. And the one thing, Megan, to the start of this question, where else? I've been very fortunate to be part of a lot of different design conversations. And the one thing that's been consistent over the last multiple years, from a consulting perspective to an integrator to a manufacturer perspective, is unfortunately a lot of things sometimes get siloed. And AV is truly everywhere. It is the one thing that is the connective tissue, if you will, of society and our life. Regardless of what environment we're in, there's always an AV application being portrayed somehow, some way. And if we think about what that means from a hotel perspective or a resort property perspective, it truly means that it's at the snack bar, it's at the lobby, it's in the cafeteria, it's in the the fitness center, it's even back in the kitchen and in the meeting spaces, right? But one thing that has been a challenge in the AV world that I think is getting much better over recent years is the integration of the AV design team with the other industry design teams. For too long, AV was always like at the back end. It was almost like it was an afterthought of, hey, they forgot to run us this conduit, so now we got to do something crazy in this retrofit or this regrade. But if we can get the industry and we can get the participants and the design community to be part of that first needs analysis, as Corey stated, and be really talking about the experience of the room as a whole and what its potential for future uses could be, then you can have power in the right spots. You can make sure that there's enough category drops for the connective items, and the audio is placed appropriately, and there's no actually reverberation between that audio, that there's sound dampening in the room to compensate for when those things are. Because I think we've all been in a conference room where somebody put up a loudspeaker and it just echoes and muffles at the same time. So, there's another tidbit for our audience members to hopefully kind of take away. It was like, hey, ask to be involved, raise your hand to be, part of that design conversation beforehand.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Pat. And one of the areas that I didn't hear you mention is outdoor spaces as well with audio. Outdoor spaces, to have those conduits run at the onset of when the architecturals are being planned, that is the time to be thinking about that rather than have to try to retrofit something afterwards. And audio, again, creating that guest experience with outdoor furniture and outdoor displays. And the whole AV world really starts to fit when it's designed in from the onset with everything else that's going on the property to create that cohesive experience.
Yeah,
the
but
outdoor
to that point,
space. Yeah. No, I was gonna say the
Go ahead,
outdoor
Eric.
space for us has definitely been a huge area. And to Greg's point, outdoor furniture, what the outdoor furniture looks like, what does the seating look like, what does the design of that look like, how does that interact with the outdoor displays, maybe an outdoor bar, right? Is the property near an ocean, so they need a great chief mount with special powder coating on it to withstand the elements. All these things play a part in what you want your property to look like. How do you want your guests to enjoy the property itself? And so outdoor space for us has been a really big deal moving forward for many, for the last couple of years. But it's become more and more important of a space, I think, for the property itself, and can also be a revenue generator if you create an inviting outdoor space and people want to hang at the bar or the outdoor restaurant because of all these cool things or cool displays that you have, or the mounting situation. The guest is not going back to the room; they're spending money and revenue at the property, and that's really what the main goal is. So.
Yeah, keeping
so
those
Greg,
guests on property is just key to revenue generation.
Yeah, and Greg, I'm so glad you brought up outdoor spaces as well, because you're so right. I mean, designing that up front with the right solutions is paramount, because resorts don't want to see a whole bunch of cables run across a sidewalk with covers on them for guests to possibly trip over. They want to be able to roll a cart out to a very unique, well scripted area, have a mixing board there, and be able to plug an XLR in at that spot. And that solutions like that from Wire Mold, like the outdoor in-ground UL listed power box, can be adapted for AV. So you could have power solution next to an AV solution and all those cables pre-run. So all you're doing is a short 3-foot, 4-foot connection that's going back to a system that's filling that entire space, and it's seamless and natural, right? It's
Exactly.
not like it's not a big industrial, watch out, don't trip over this.
Nobody
cable
likes the
coming
speed
across.
bumps. So
Right.
Thank you. There's a great word for it. Speed bumps. I love it. That's perfect. Thank you.
they're also not ADA friendly. So
Not typically, no. But mind you, we have speed bumps that are at Legrand AV. We have all sorts of solutions. I got to take the shameless plug opportunity, right? You want ADA compliance and cable management for the floor. We've got you covered. So.
Yeah, and I think one of the keywords you've all been using is outdoor, because I think it's getting less and less now, but you see people trying to use a display that's not meant for outdoor, saying like, it's kind of covered, we're not going to have it year round, and that always turns into a disaster.
That never happens. No one ever does that.
Yeah, I think it's key to spend a couple extra dollars to get the right product. Samsung has great outdoor displays that are truly outdoor, all weather, enclosed displays that really make it work. And yes, it's going to be a higher priced item than your typical consumer TV, but it's going to last in the way that it should and function in the way that it should, especially within the elements of heat, cold, wind, rain. You want products designed for outdoor space to be utilized in outdoor space, not for indoor product to be used in outdoor space to truly get the life out of it that you want.
Yeah, and from an experience perspective, something to note, things like high brightness, right? If you have a display that's meant for outdoors, there's a high brightness element to it. So when we're talking about user experience and keeping people outdoors and keeping them buying the Mai Tais from the bar or whatever it may be, the giant Bavarian pretzels, keep them enjoying themselves. You want to make sure that you are applying technology in those spaces that's going to allow them to continue to connect to that environment. If you're deploying, as Eric said, there's obviously the element of whether or not that product is suitable for that environment because of the elements, but also is it truly functional in that environment, and is it providing the user experience that you want it to provide? Things like brightness and really bright sunny areas or beach resorts, you need to make sure that that technology is deployed correctly to keep those people coming back and buying and enjoying their lounging experience by the pool.
Check your IP ratings, check your NEMA ratings, check your brightness, and you guys can help people with all of that. So speaking of you guys helping people, what are some ways that integrators can help make the processes better for owners and operators of hotels and resorts?
Well, I think one of the first, Corey, you want to take it? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and this is going to lead into you further advancing this conversation. I think Patrick nailed it earlier as far as get involved early, with the other disciplines on the property, be a part of that process. Even when it comes to architectural design, it's very crucial. AV elements, especially in these properties, the architectural design is a huge piece of the technology aspects as well. So being there as early as possible, having that conversation and taking those quote unquote nice to haves that the property is looking for and making those necessities, making them need to haves for that property, I think is crucial.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. And I think the other aspect of it is just never make an assumption, as part of the project, right? Ask a lot of questions and be engaged in what they're trying to achieve, because when we find ourselves doing the same thing over and over again in terms of creating an experience, we could make some natural assumptions about, they want to make this happen, right? This is what they're looking for their guests to do, but maybe it's not. And so, taking every opportunity as a unique new opportunity and asking a lot of questions to get to the core is, I think, another area where our audience members could really strive.
So we have time for one more question before we can get into some audience questions. What is the importance of investing in comprehensive comprehensive AV solutions to enhance the guest experience?
I mean, we just touched on it, I think, right? If you're making an investment for a great outdoor space, right, there should be a revenue return on that investment because people are staying and they're eating more and having more to drink and socializing more at the property, right? If you are putting in guest-facing laundry and it's good, high quality, guest-facing laundry, guests are spending money at, let's say, an extended stay property to do their laundry. If you're creating a nice audio environment, they may stay in the lobby a little bit more and socialize and buy more. So I think it's putting the investment up front for, we sometimes use a term called decorating, right? Decorating with tech within technology, but it's creating an environment through Pro AV products to generate more revenue for your property or create an experience that the guest wants to come back to your property because of what they shared, with their family or friends when they were there. And so, in my opinion, the more you can gear your AV wants or likes to create revenue either via on-site at a bar, restaurant, food, beverage situation, or create a memorable experience that the guests, like, Patrick mentioned the Virgin Hotel in Nashville. That was a lasting memory that every time he's in Nashville now, he's going to think about, oh, I should probably go stay at the Virgin because I had such a great experience there. So it's the repeat business of the guest stay, and then the food and beverage, repetitive buy that, yes, it may cost a certain amount up front, but look what it's doing for your property. Guests are staying more on recurring visits, and guests are staying more physically on site to enjoy food and beverage. And that's a huge revenue source for the property.
Yeah, and being at the onset to really assist properties and understanding that when they're at the onset of their project, to say, for example, Eric brought up laundry. They're doing laundry and you have a really nice outdoor space that they can go get a drink while their laundry is in process. And if it's all cohesively set out and laid out on the property, and they're enjoying nice audio and they're enjoying all these other things that we've touched on, it really helps to build that value up front, and so that they can have, one, a fantastic guest experience, but two, that ROI on the back end.
And I was going to add too,
Yeah.
it doesn't
And I
have to
wouldn't.
be.
Yep.
Sorry, I was just going to add, it doesn't have to be a high-end resort or a beautiful independent property. I mean,
Right.
Corey mentioned we travel, quite a bit and stay mostly in that mid-scale select service market. And even last night's a great example. We were at a mid-scale property and we ended up staying in the lobby and, having a beverage in the lobby. And because of the way that the displays were laid out in the lobby, we ended up staying and watching the hockey game in the lobby. We didn't go up to the room and ended up spending more in the lobby on, this case, beverages, to enjoy the game and not go back up to the room. So that's a great example. And it could be a nice display that's mounted beautifully, or several displays, or an LED wall, or even projection that can create an experience that you don't have to be a 5-star resort. You could be a 2 or 3-star property, a mid-scale property, and still get that same effect without, going crazy as far as the expense goes.
Right.
Or even watching the guests next to us enjoy s'mores over the outdoor fire pit.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I want to go to that hotel, but I would, say, hey, let's not forget the core of where this kind of starts with a resort property too, and that's the meeting space, right? I mean,
Right.
a well designed, functional, simple to use meeting space for the renter is a big opportunity of rental income or revenue for a property. And we think about that. Each of us are leaders within our respective companies, and we make decisions on where we want to have a meeting for our team and bring them together nationally. And if we know that one property X versus property Y in a particular town has a better meeting experience, we're probably going to choose property X, right? Because we know that we can go in there, we can push a button, the screen drops, the TV comes on, whatever, I can connect really easily. So, thinking about all of that, the power, the charging, the display functionality, the camera technology, if we're using a Teams or live experience, and the ability to share information and get people engaged and immersed is a big portion of these revenue generating opportunities as well. So I think, Megan, to your question, it's everywhere, right? Revenue is everywhere. And as long as the people on the team, on the design and on the installation are paying attention to that opportunity for their customer, we're going to see great opportunities come through, and we're going to see more advanced systems in place that are easier to use for a great guest experience.
So we have time for one quick audience question. So I'll ask you to just kind of give a 2-sentence answer. Amanda wants to know, as guest expectations evolve, how are you ensuring that new avenues for enhancing hospitality environments align with changing preferences and needs? So kind of how are you future-proofing these installations?
I would say just a quick one from an in-room standpoint is kind of copying what we have in our living rooms, right? With streaming and casting solutions, I think is really important for the guest, and having ample charging within the room itself to charge all of our devices, our iPads and our phones and our tablets and all these things. So ample charging, easy to use charging, the right charging connections, and I think a more residential experience when you get into the room itself. From a streaming app standpoint or casting standpoint is big for guests.
I think one of the things in the public spaces would be simplicity, right? Ease of use technology is paramount. And I think in addition to that, not even ease of use, but also self-serving. I think that's going to be becoming more and more popular. We were having this discussion as far as how you enter your room. When I can bypass the desk because I have an app on my phone that will enable me to go into my room without getting a room key. That self-serving technology, I think, is going to be crucially important in the coming years. So looking for technology that can be integrated with newer technologies that will enable those things, I think will be very important to the initial conversation.
Yeah, and as far as outdoor solutions, as far as future-proofing, we're staying on top of trends as far as design goes, as far as furniture and cooking solutions for outdoor, as well as integrating it with all of those current high-tech audio and visual opportunities.
Yeah. And from a manufacturer's perspective, future-proofing is somewhat about being a little bit more utilitarian and having, flexibility for reuse, especially as we bring into the conversation the need for sustainability, as that is a growing topic in the industry and probably a topic for a whole nother, get together of people. But, the other piece I would put to, though, is, and we didn't touch on it, and it's the recognition that AV is in the cloud and on the network now, right? It is an IT function in a lot of respects. And so having a very robust Wi-Fi platform in the resort or in the property to make sure that connectivity doesn't drop, that your customer or guest doesn't experience any issues in that regard. And there's great solutions out there from brands like Luxel that give the opportunity to go over the design of the space and put a project plan in place to guarantee that network will work in every corner of the building. So things like that to look for as a designer and a partner.
Yeah, don't let your property be like my house, is basically what Patrick said.
You want a robust bandwidth going into your property to meet all of those guest needs and expectations, for sure. That's a great point, Patrick.
even lighting today is PoE powered in a lot of areas. There's a great case study on a beautiful hotel, a landmark type building in California, and I believe it's in Los Angeles. The entire building is PoE, everything in it, the TVs, the mic, even down to the microwave, right? So having the understanding that those switches are and that network needs to be in place. Our audience members need to definitely take a hard look at the network side.
This has been such a fantastic conversation, and I wish we could go on and on, but unfortunately we're out of time. Thanks you guys so much for joining us today. Eric, if you want to learn more about you or your company, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. My email, steiner@exertusalmo.com. They can go to our hospitality website, hospitality.exertusalmo.com. A million resources, collateral material, you name it. There's a lot of ways to find me.
Greg?
Similar to Eric, with the websites, again, hospitality.exertusalmo.com is that go-to place. gcucorda@exertusalmo.com for my email address.
Corey?
Don't come find me. And you can email me, callen@exertusalmo.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. We have all of our ProAV services at Exertus ProAV website, so check that out. It's all embedded in there. Lovely collateral as well.
And we will drop the Exertus Elmo LinkedIn page in the chat for all of you. And last but not least, Patrick?
And bring it up the end here, and it's Patrick Cuddy on LinkedIn, super easy to find. That's probably the best area to find me, but Patrick Cuddy, or Patrick.Cuddy, at legrand.com. And, I would have to say, go to legrandav.com as well. Great partnership with Exertus, and anything that you can find on legrandav.com from a resource perspective is supplied through our fantastic partner here. So we have, great history together, great opportunities. Looking forward to where this goes.
And thank you so much once again to Exertus Elmo for making this panel possible. Let's check out this quick video from them before we jump into our next session where they'll discuss content for hospitality applications.
Thanks so much, guys.